Hello everyone, thanks for joining my home studio where I share my passion for watercolor paintings. This week I'm excited to share you guys how to create a beautiful winter storm night painting. After a stressful day at work, I stepped outside and I was fascinated by this calming winter storm vibe, and this inspired me to do this painting. And I'm excited to share you this creative process with you and taking you from start to finish. I can't wait to share this creative process with you guys. I do upload every Saturday of my watercolor painting from start to finish, and this does require time and effort. If you want to support me, hit the subscribe button so you guys can get weekly video uploads from my channel. And let's get started, guys. Before sketching everything, I always think about my composition. I would have mentioned exact same thing in all my videos. Because it's really essentially important, because if your composition is wrong, if you're not trying to tell a story through a painting, it ends up being a boring painting. Years ago when I started painting, I don't think about anything else. I see a reference, I just paint. But nowadays, I'm thinking more about my composition and more about my placing of the buildings. And the other thing, a lot of beginners make a mistake of being really true to their reference. You don't have to be exactly place the building where it is. You can move it around and change it around to get the desired result of how you want it. Because and you can see the street pole, which is in the middle of the road, I moved it slightly towards the left because it's kind of like splitting the composition in half. So any composition that is cutting in half, it's boring. So it's always 1/3 is really amazing. And when also coming to placing buildings, proportions and everything, pick one side and slowly build up from that side. And make sure whenever you sketch, make sure you keep it light, because watercolors, you have to make really light so you know where is the drawing is. The reason being I'm saying is, the watercolor, there is an issue of, it's not an issue, watercolor is known for the transparency and it's not an opaque medium, so you kind of like keep on layering it, whereas in gouache oil, where you could, people start with the shape and they also start with the darker part and slowly build it up. So being said that, you can also see I cut my building on the left hand side really into half, and I want 80% of the composition on right hand side and 20% on this side. And again, I'm not splitting the composition in half, I'm usually splitting the composition 1/3. And I'm also adding a couple of figures. I'm going to ignore the cars in the foreground, but rather I'm going to add a streetcar. And I also add a couple of figures in the foreground. As you can see, I also added a major figure. So I pre-wet the paper really fast, and I'm trying to add the some colors, throwing down here and there, thinking where my light's gonna be. So there's a red light, so I know there's a red light, and there's also a couple of warm lights. For warm lights, I'm using cadmium yellow, and for the reds, I'm using cadmium red. Being said that, I'm realizing that you can also use Winsor orange or any kind of orange. So now let's start with the sky. So for the sky, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to use a little bit of blues, and if you squint your eyes and you can see there's a lot of blues in it. And you can see I also used another technique of once I put in the wash, I used tissue paper to get the bright light which is in the foreground. And I'm also trying to leave away with the highlights, and I'm also trying to put down some water so that there's a glow which is happening. And as soon as at the bottom, I'm trying to warm up the wash using a lot of reds. And you can see that I created this gradient of blue and all the way coming to reddish tone. And this is just a first wash, and I'm not worried about what I'm going to get, but I'm trying to slowly build it up. And that's the other thing, a lot of beginners have issue of building your washes. When I started painting, I did have issue of this building washes. It's doing it slowly and taking one step at a time. And you can see I'm not happy with the midground, so I'm doing another wash and mixing it. So I'm trying to do a wash which is a lighter wash. I'm just trying to paint the light. So the other trick you can use and trick your mind is think about you're painting the light first. Then you'll be painting the midtones, then you will add the darker tones. And now I can see I'm gonna start with background building, and I'm squinting my eyes and I'm checking my value, and it looks pretty good. And for the background, I'm going to create like a glow and haze, and I will leave it as it is. I'm not gonna worry about it. And when I do like these buildings, I'm trying to get my shape as close as possible. And I also left some highlights for the streetlights, which is sitting on the foreground. And I'm going to combine all those background building to the midground building. So now I'm adding the darker tone for the midground building, which is sitting at the bottom. So I'm trying to create a gradient of a warmish glow and a darker pigment at the bottom. And you can see I'm not worried about the colors. Only worried about is the shape. I'm trying to get the shape as accurate as possible, and I'm trying to get that glow which is sitting in front of the building, and that also enhances a little bit of perspective as well. And there's one thing there's a pet peeve, and I hate, like while painting watercolors, it's not like painting freely, because you have to leave away these highlights, and it can be challenging for a lot of beginners, and it can be frustrating. So whenever I teach, a lot of my students also have this issue of not leaving the highlights. So the one thing you can do is you can plan your painting, and you can also put when I started painting, I usually put 1, 2 and 3. For the highlights, for the white parts I put 1, for the midtones I put 2, and for the darker parts I put 3. So I know that where I have to be light and where I have to be darker, and I can eventually build it up. And I also want to create this atmosphere of this hazy, warmish glow in the midground. It's really hard to achieve if you're not using a good watercolor paper. So I'm using Saunders Waterford, and arches work really amazing. There's also another watercolor paper I use. It's called Bawang, and which is also pretty nice too. And now I'm adding the first wash for the buildings there. And the inside the gas station, I would have left it white, but I did add some little bit of glow in it. And there's also a couple of red signs for the Timmies. I'm also doing that. And you can also see I'm also not I'm not like worried about using my hands. I'm just like, you know, painting it freely. If I don't like something, I just dab my finger so the paint comes up, so it doesn't look as vibrant it is. And I'm also adding the Streetcar, and I also want to make sure the Streetcar didn't read as dark as what we have in the foreground. So now I'm adding the, so even though there isn't a car, I'm adding one car there, just to, because when you paint, when I started painting, I also add like a lot of blank spaces in my painting, and my composition looked blank a lot of everywhere. So some ways you can fill your composition is by using adding cars, add people, and there's a way of you can take your painting and lead your viewer into the painting. So the way you do it is through cars and through people. So now you can see I did add the wash for the foreground building, and the same thing, I want to make sure that there is a little bit of glow inside it, and I used a little bit of blue in it. And since it's a little bit wet, I'm going to put a little bit of colors in it. And I want to have a lot of sharp edges in my foreground, because in the midground you can see it's a little bit loose, and even it's close to the midtown, I keep it a little bit loose. But I want to make sure that to get some little bit of darker tones, I'm going to be using a little bit of neutral tint and a little bit of burnt amber, or you can also use cobalt blue and a little bit of burnt amber in it. And I want to make sure that I'm getting my so you can see I also added the pole in the foreground, and this is my Euro piece. So what I mean by that is I would spend more time on this street pole than any other poles. As I said, whenever things in the foreground, you put on a lot of details, and the rest of the painting you treat as a backdrop, and that's what I'm trying to do. And there's also a bicycle which is sitting on top of it, and there's one thing I still struggle with is like painting bicycles. That's why I try to treat as simple shape as possible. And you can see once I am happy with the glow in the midground building and on the left hand side, I'm going to add a little bit of darker tones. And if you squint your eyes, and you can see there's a lot of darker darker gradient happening at the top. As it comes down, it's getting warmer and warmer. But I left it as it is, and this is what I was talking about, adding figures, not having some blank spaces. And I'm also adding another figure. There's also some people are crossing in the midground. I'm going to add them as well. And there's also another figure I'm going to add. They're walking, and there's also another figure I'm going to put in the foreground. And there is 2 people in the foreground, so I also want to have another really nice figure in the foreground as well, and they're going to act as a Euro figure as well. And so there's a lot of figures in here, but I want to make sure that if a person watches this painting, I want to make sure that they want to see this major figure than any other painting. And I also made him, made her or him as he's holding he's struggling to walk on the snow with a stick. And I thought it would be nice to add a dog too, and I also put it in the sketch, but I'll add it eventually. So now I'm adding the road lines, which is in the midground. It is really important to add those road partition from the pavement, and as soon as you add, it also helps to enhance perspective. So this part is really important, adding the snow and the shadows on the ground. So before I try to go and try to do each individual stroke, but later I realized that I use this flat brush and I take some pigment, I just layer on top of it, and you can see this gives this abstract shapes in the foreground. It kind of looks like that a road is happening. And again, if you squint your eyes, and you can see I'm making it darker because in the foreground it's on the shadow, and the shadow looks completely covering everything, but I left some shadows here and there. So now I'm adding the streetcar, but I want to make sure I'm telling myself not to add that much details for the streetcar. So now I'm going to be adding the shadows for the foreground. So for the shadows in the foreground, so it looks really dull in the reference, and you can see, and I'm going to use a little bit of Cobalt Blue and Cerulean Blue, and I'm going to splatter some colors on top of it, and I'm just trying to get this abstract shapes. And don't try to go and paint each and individual snow blocks there, and it is painful, and think everything as a shape and think as one single shape and paint. So now I'm going to add the street light. Again, as I said, I'll spend more time on this street light than anywhere else. I want to make sure that I'm capturing it as accurate as possible than the rest of the painting. And there's also something, there's also a street sign, and it's also next to the street lights, and I'm going to add that. I'm going to capture it as accurate as possible. And there's also some a light, it's on this things. I'm also trying to capture that, and this is the street sign. And this painting is done near King and Strawn, and this is where I worked. And I also picked this reference because I captured this reference. I was really tired from work and I was losing inspiration. When I come out, I saw this really nice on a snowstorm, this really nice lighting, so I took a reference of it. And this picture was taken last year. I always wanted to capture it, but I didn't get a chance to see it, and it brought my memory back, and I painted it. And that's how I pick my subject. So there's something you can pick subject is from your own journey, something you capture and you can try to replicate in your way of expressing it. And now you can see I'm adding those warmish glow, the light hitting on the snow. And you can see as soon as I added that, it kind of created that pattern of lighting and shadows which is happening in the scene. And this is a restaurant, and I'm also adding that as well. And now I'll try to go and create a little bit of this glow around the lights. So when you do it, one thing to keep in mind, I always say in every painting I do, and I'll also say in this painting as well, don't be caught up with details or look exactly like your reference. It is okay to be different, and you're expressing your own medium, and just express freely and enjoy the act of painting than being close to your reference. And now I'm adding some street wires, and this will help to connect the street wires, and this also enhances perspective, and this also enhances a little bit of details at the top for the sky, and it also connects the sky to the buildings as well as to the street poles, which is in the foreground and the midground. And I'll also make sure not to overdo this. And there's only a few things left, and what I mean by that is using white paint. I think I did use white paint, but really sparingly. Where I used white paint is like exactly in the middle of the lights, so that it kind of creates this glow from the light and the lamps. And it did rather came out nice, and I tried to capture the essence. My painting looked a little bit lighter than the reference, but I capture the essence of it and capture the mood from it. So now it's your turn. Take my reference or find your own reference, and let's see what you can come up with. Thanks again for watching this winter storm video painting tutorial with me. Let me know what you guys think about this video in the comment section below. If you have any other questions or subjects you want me to cover in watercolors, write me at watercolorimpressions@gmail.com or comment down below. Before you go, hit the subscribe button so you guys can get weekly video uploads from my channel. And good luck with your painting, folks.